All right, guys, so we'll start looking at paging in this lesson. Now, a little background as to what paging is and why we need it. Paging talks about segmenting the data that is being returned. So right now, what we're doing is we're doing one big query, getting all of the values in a certain table all at once. And while it may look fine because we only have, 3 countries and 5 hotels, when you deploy this API for international usage and you're actually storing hotels in 200 countries across the world, you will realize that your data is going to grow exponentially. And then you will definitely need to, one, protect yourself and your system from too many requests and the burden of serving up that much data all at once to potentially many clients, as well as protecting the clients from having to develop ways internally to segment the data because they're getting back too much all at once. So paging is a nice, effective, and efficient way to segment the data, allowing the client to say, I would like this many records, and then we just return according to what they asked for. So I started off with Postman on the screen because what we want from our client is that when they're making that service call, they would pass in parameters to say something like the page size that they would want. So page size would mean how many records. So let's say they say 10, and then they would say, and I would like the page number. So let's say page number. So I can either type it in the link or just put it down here in the params section. So page number would be equal to something like 1 or 2. So we need to now implement code to say that if they ask for a page size of 10, that means they want 10 records, but then they ask for page 3 or something that's not page 1, that means they would like record 30 up until record 40, right? Something like that. So that way, if they're displaying 10 hotels at a time on their pages, when they go to the next page and the next page, they would just increment this and they would know they would get 40 to 50, then 50 to 60, etc. So if we have 500 hotels, at no point would anybody be getting all 500. They would only be getting chunks of 50 or whatever it is that they're asking for. Of course, we can limit the maximum. So what we need to do is start off by creating a new model. So I'm going to call this model request params. So it's just a class, and it will just be a model outlining the constraints or the parameter names that they're allowed to pass in, right? So before I do anything, I want to initiate or declare a maximum page size of 50. So nobody can request more than 50 records at a time. Of course, this is mine or yours. So if you want to limit it to 10, you want to up it to 100, that's entirely up to you. Do what's best for your system. So we're setting that to 50 right now. And then we have another property that we're going to call page number, and another one, this one is private, that we're going to call page size. All right, so these are just default. So I'm saying that the default page number, in case none was specified, the default page number will be 1. And the default page size will be 10, right? But then I'm going to make the page size a public version of the page size, where I'm going to manually say get, and here I'm going to return underscore page size. But then we can also set the value for page size to be equal to, and I'm going to say value being greater than max page size. So this is a question. I will just use a Turner operator to say if it is greater than the maximum page size, then we send back the page size. So that's why we did that, right? So if they requested more than 50 records, so the default is 10, right? If they requested more than 50, then we just send back 50. Otherwise, we send back value. So value here is a keyword, as you see it highlighted in blue, just like it is for return. So value would be whatever value we're setting here. All right, so here we just have a default get set and we're initializing it to 1. So there are no real constraints around this because we don't know what page they're at. However, over this one, we're saying always return the page size. So when you get, return what that is. However, when setting it, if the requested page size is greater than 50 or whatever value you put there, then we return that maximum. Otherwise, then we can go ahead and return that value. Now, the next thing I want to do is to modify the controller. So at this point, I'm going to just modify get countries because like I said, I don't want at any point somebody being able to just get all the records at once. That would be problematic for my system. So what I'll do is modify get countries. So this endpoint is no longer just get all countries, but now we're going to say from query. So you've seen from body being put here. I believe when we were doing the post, you would see from body. So that request would have the data in the body, right? So we would have done that. Let me see if I can find any of those with the body. There we go. So that's the from body that it takes it from that. However, from query, we'll look inside of the query string that is being passed over for the params. So that's why I called it request params or parameters, right? So from params, we are looking for fields that match the names as outlined in our request model, right? So it's the same kind of concept as the DTO, right? Request params. So I'm just going to call these request params. Can I use the word params? That's a keyword. So now we're looking for our query string, that will have in fields for page size and the page number. So now the next development will be involving passing that information down to our get all command. So remember that in our unit of work, our get all is saying, oh, just give back everything anyway, right? So what I'm going to do is pass the query params down to the get all. And of course, that is going to require an override, all right? I don't want to get rid of the original get all. It may serve some purpose otherwise. So I'm just going to create another one, right? So let's go back over to our unit of work. No, not unit of work. Sorry, the generic repository. And we have get all as it is. So what I'm going to do is create brand new declaration. And notice I have this new data type here, iPage list. You'll see more about that in a few. So I have task get all, and I'm just getting the includes as well as the request parameters. So I'm not even going to allow them to do the filtering and all of that stuff because we're not really interested in that right now. We're getting all, but we want to facilitate the paging. So let me just go ahead and include what I can include. We haven't declared this data type as yet, so we can leave that alone. And since that is now in the interface, I need to go and update the generic repository so that it can implement it. All right, so now that it is there, what code do I put in? So really and truly, I'm doing everything that I'm doing here. Well, maybe not every single thing, because I have no order by, but I'm just going to take that code, paste it down here, and the return. All right, so I'm just going kind of slowly so we can see exactly what's happening. So there's no expression. I can take out the expression. We do have facilities for the include, but we don't have any order by, so I'll take that one out. Now what I need to add is a facility to actually, well, filter or pick exactly what I want from query, because this is still just returning everything. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and take care of this error, which is the iPage list. And if you look at the suggestions, well, the library I want is not there. So I'm going to go over to NuGet and get it manually. So manage NuGet packages, go to browse, and then I'm going to look for x.paged list. So this is a very prominent library that helps with paging. So we'll just say xpage list MVC core. Go ahead and install that. And now that it's installed, we can go back and try and take care of those errors. So where am I? This is generic repository. Now I can say using x.pagelist. So I'll go ahead and do that. So making the page list yourself is very possible, but then why do all of that when there's a library, right? So go to the generic and let's include all missing references. All right. And then the cool thing now is that down here, it's complaining because we have iPageList as a return type, but we're doing toList here. So iPageList gives us an extension function that allows us to say toPageList async. And then the toPageList will take two parameters. It wants the page number and the page size. Where are we going to get that from? Our request params. All right. So actually, I'm going to even take the null off this. And frankly, I'm going to take off the includes. So let me just do a little refactoring because now I'm thinking about it. When we're getting all like in pages, when they're paging the data, they probably don't need to include anything about the country or anything else, right? Because they're just listing it out. When you get the details of something, then you probably want the includes. So I mean, that's up to you. Maybe I'll leave the includes because I could see value in it. So I'll leave the includes. But request params, we definitely want that to be mandatory for this version. So let me put this at the front. I think that's why that red line is there. Because anytime you have your parameters listed, you have to have the nullable ones to the end. So there we go. So request params. So back to the task at hand. Query.asNoTracking.toPageList. And then we pass in query params dot, which one did they say they want first? The page number. So it's important to always look at the requirements to make sure you're passing in the correct value. And then they want the page size. And yes, I do have somewhere you can get that from. All right. And then I think this error is there because we need to be async. There we go. So now we can get a page list of anything that we have in our database. And I need to go and correct my repository where I made this not nullable. And of course, I need to move it to the front. All right. So you see, as you build on your API, tiny changes are made along the way. They're actually required, but you know, once you know what you're doing, and you'll get on top of it. So let me just do a build and make sure that I haven't messed up anything else. I see here. All right. So they're saying that get all, there's none. Okay, so this error is because I'm still using the function get all. So right now we have two get all functions. To distinguish between the two of them, what I'll have to do is pass in exactly the parameters that the one I know I want needs, right? So, well, actually that's not working because the other one still takes more than one. So it's still confused as to which one it is I am dealing with. So what I'm going to do, I probably should have done this from the start. I'll just change the name and do a new one, right? Sometimes you try to be generic and it backfires. So let me just call this get paged list. All right, that I think that's clear enough. So in the generic repository, we do that. In the generic repository, we made that change as soon as I find it. There we go. And there we go. So let us take this for a spin. So we've only done this to countries. And the fact is that we've done it one place and it's that easy to go over to any other controller and make that change because the hard work was already done. All right. So that's one of the advantages of having a clean architecture. And I have an error here. And that error was just my bad. So I just fixed that. All right. So let's try that again. And when we get to this point now, let us try to bring back country with page size 15 and page number 5. I'm actually going to set a breakpoint here so that we can see the parameters coming in, or maybe let me just put it at line 39. All right, let's try that. So send. All right, so it's hitting the breakpoint. So that means the request was recognized. Let us see if we're getting back the request params. There we get 5 and 15. All right, and then we continue, and we know that we're going to get back all our countries. The request is for a page size and a page number that doesn't exist. I only have 2 hotels. So, well, 2 countries, sorry. So that's one is the first indication that this is working. So let's try this again. I want page number 1 with page size 2. I only have 2 countries. Remember, I deleted one, right? Let's try that. So when we send, we only get back the 2, right? If I requested page 1 with only 1, then I'm only getting back 1. If I requested page 10, which means skip to the 10th record. So what our library X page list did was it automatically modified the query with a take and a skip. Let me just jump over there. So in Link, or Entity Framework rather, you can actually say something like query dot, and you can do a take. So you take this number, right? Returns a specified number of contiguous elements, and then you can say skip where it says bypass a number. So that's really what it is doing. So when we send the page size, or let's say page number 10, it means skip 10 records, right? Or skip 10 times this number of records and then bring back this many, something like that. Right? So all of that, it sounded confusing. It's really not that difficult to write. I'm probably making it sound more difficult than it really is. But the reality is that we didn't even have to do all of that because of our library doing that for us, where it says to page list. It does that automatically. And that is why it takes those query parameters. Maybe, okay, I can't go into that, the class behind it. So that's fine. So yeah, so that is how we implement paging. So obviously you're probably not seeing the full power of it because I only have very few records. However, if we seeded maybe 50 hotels into this database and then we said we want page 5 and only 10 records, then it would say give me that. Well, I think my math is off there, but I hope you get the gist. So right now we have paging enabled in our API. And once again, this is built to protect both yourself and the requesting application. And if these parameters were not provided, then by default, we have told the request params class that the value should default to page number 1 and a maximum of 50.